Oh, it is taping and is not falling over, and I think we have successful entry. I'm seated at the table with my super leftist villain mug and my pot, and I can start. Welcome to TBI Talk. My name is Lynn. I'm a severe traumatic brain injury survivor. I got run over by a Ford Mustang July 3rd, 2020 at the Fort Lauderdale Beach area. Well, I was staying there for the 4th of July weekend with some friends during the joy that we remember was COVID-19. One of the things I think is the most necessary to talk about for TBI survivors is how our traumatic brain injury can change our personalities. And I would like to state, I feel pretty sure that I am not the same person today that I was July 2nd or July 3rd, 2020, for several different reasons, but the most notable of them is the fact that I survived that severe traumatic brain injury. And in the reading that I've done about surviving TBIs, a lot of them are offering the support that once you reach 5 years in your recovery as a severe TBI survivor, that's the peak of your healing. And I am very grateful that I am at that super fabulous 5-year healing mark. So I have healed as much as I am going to physically from my traumatic brain injury. My mental healing, though, will go on forever. One of the things that I think when you think about the mental healing is the need that I've felt to make peace with what I am able to do, what I can do today, and what I can't do today, and how I'm different today than I was before the TBI. And I'm different in many, many different ways now that the TBI has subsided. I think the most important thing, the biggest change for me, is that because my traumatic brain injury had so many additional head injuries involved with it, my right eye and the right eye nerve got really damaged by that Mustang, so I can't really see out of my right eye. Because I have that significant visual damage and my field of vision is maybe 40% smaller today than it was then, I can't drive a car. And that was that was a shift. That was a change. I remember when we took my car back to the Honda dealership where I had leased it. My friend had given me a ride, and then we had to get an Uber home. So my friend drove me to the dealership so I could turn in my car. And another thing that I needed to do was I don't need a driver's license anymore because I can't drive. So they cut off the corner of my old Florida driver's license, and then they gave me my new Florida identity card. So it's no longer a driver's license, it's just a personal identity card. So I can't drive, and that is that's a major change. It just changes the way you think about getting things done. And it really makes you evaluate the importance that we may feel about going all these different places and doing all these different things. And certainly as a TBI survivor, I certainly can't go and do today like I could before, but my social needs are very different today than they were then. Another thing that I think is really worth mentioning, especially if you know me for the better part of, if you know me this whole 21st century, this is going to shock you. I don't listen to the radio. Me. Jesse Jordan, a former radio DJ, a former morning show co-host, I don't listen to the radio. The radio is like major entertainment in your car, but as I don't have a car and I can't drive, I don't really have many opportunities or needs to listen to the radio station. So I have no idea what the top 20 pop songs or country songs or classic rock songs. I have no idea what they look like today. So that's also very different and I know that so many of the radio groups that I used to work for have different names. So a lot of different changes in the radio market. One of them being I'm no longer a part of it. So while I don't listen to the radio, and while my media consumption is different, another thing that's different about my media consumption is that with the damage done to my right eye, it's very difficult for me to read. I can still read words I'm still able to read, but it's really hard for me to read a book. So that's another thing that's pretty different about me, is I know that books were never a huge part of my normal existence, but now audiobooks, that's my jam. Because instead of listening to the radio while I'm in the shower, I can listen to my next greatest Lincoln Lawyer novel or my next Harry Bosch novel. Or there's a really awesome TV show on HBO called It's Florida Man. There's a commentator on It's Florida Man who's a really excellent author who writes books with stories about things that may have happened here in Florida. I mean, all his books are based here in Florida. So I might not listen to the radio, and I might not use books the same way, but I do listen to Audible like it's a job. It's a commitment. I love it. I love listening to Audible. Another thing that you just witnessed me do, I smoke pot. My name is Lynn Hesley, and I smoke marijuana, medical marijuana, here in Florida. As a severe traumatic brain injury survivor, I can let you know that anxiety as a recovery symptom that TBI survivors will see, it's real. Anxiety is real. And while depression is feeling sad about how things went, anxiety is fearing how things will go. And that is there's a lot of fear there for TBI patients and recoveries because we're not always really sure about what is coming ahead, what's coming next. So for that reason, there's so much uncertainty. Marijuana really helps me find that peace and that calm and really sustain it. There have been times when I've actually thought, said to myself, the way you say things to yourself is, why worry about this? We can't control it. And that's a valid concern for a lot of TBI survivors, is there are just so many things in life to worry about. And it's very easy to spend a lot of time being worried and concerned about how things may turn out and how things may turn out for you. And finally, this has been a very challenging path to walk as a TBI survivor, as a severe traumatic brain injury survivor. I have noticed I do not have any want or desire or need for sex. No desire. Before the accident, my sexual identity was pretty thorough, established. It was well functioned and practiced. I was really involved. I started volunteering at a fetish store here locally because my sexual identity was so secure, and I used to go to some of the fetish parties. It was a really good time. We had a lot of really great outfits, a lot of fancy, fantastic clothes. As I no longer have the need or the drive for sex, I suppose that makes me somewhat asexual. And I know that that is a common outcome for TBI survivors, is accepting the fact that sex is no longer a need or a factor in my life. And the opposite can be true. I'm sure there are some traumatic brain injury survivors who feel that sex is necessary, essential. And I'd like to say this to them, like, I get it. I understand your pressure and your need. I just hope that you understand my lack of need and my lack of desire. I know that affection, physical affection, is something I am just not in the mood for, in the zone for. A few years ago, I actually went on a couple dates with a neighbor, and we had a really nice time, really nice conversations. Really, we had a couple dinners. It was really nice. And obviously, I really liked him, and I still like him, and I like spending time with him, and I think he really liked me. He wanted to express how much he likes me by inviting me into his house, and I went in, and then things started getting sexual. I could deal with the smooches and the hugs and the light, like how the light touches on your face. Oh man, I mean, that affection, still affectionate as all get out. I love affection. I love hugs and face smooches, and holding hands is really, really special. But when this gentleman started to explore my body, and he wanted to start removing articles of clothing, that was when I realized that I'm not wired the same as I was before. I'll be real with you. Old me would have been like, okay, well then, let's get this going. He wants to take off some clothes. Let's take these clothes off. Let's make this happen. He started taking off mine. I'd start taking off his. But that's not how my brain works anymore, because it survived a traumatic brain injury. And finally, as a traumatic brain injury survivor, I know that there's so many changes that I am going through and I have gone through. And for other traumatic brain injury survivors, there's so many changes you're going through, and I get it. I support you. You're doing amazing. Keep up the great work. You're doing so good. I am really grateful for this opportunity to be able to share these interesting outcomes for traumatic brain injury survivors. I know that traumatic brain injury survivors don't generally talk about their medical condition, their concern, their needs, their outcomes, the occurrences. TBI just isn't something that's talked about a lot. And I understand it. You know, I've read a lot of things that say that traumatic brain injuries are sometimes invisible. They're invisible because the changes are so personal and so individual, and because they really only occur to us, there's really no need, especially if the accident or the injury is based in an odd place for you too. So depending on where the accident or the injury happened. Another thing I think is different for me, I don't know if you're aware, but my right eye doesn't work. So because my right eye doesn't work, people know there's something wrong with me right off the bat. And after they know, they have identified visually that there's something wrong with me, I can validate that and say, yes, I survived a traumatic brain injury. And I'm really happy to talk about what my recovery journey has been like to help other traumatic brain injury survivors and caregivers of traumatic brain injury survivors. Because, as I've said before, traumatic brain injuries aren't individual injuries. They're family injuries. And they happen to the whole family. So from my family to your family, thank you so much for being here, for being a part of this. I'm going to start my walk over because it's going to take me a minute. I'm going to have a sip of my tea. I super left this villain mug and a hit of my marijuana. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Have a great night, and I'll see you really soon.